It is my privilege to introduce our lone speaker, Galveston County's Congressman from the 14th Congressional District, Randy Weber. Randy was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 2012. In electing Randy, the people of Galveston County chose to send someone to Washington who knows how to fix things. And there are a few things as important to the people along the Texas Gulf Coast as their air conditioning. Beginning in 1981, Randy Weber built an air conditioning company, Weber's Air and Heat, from scratch. He grew his business by applying proven Texas values: hard work, common sense, and care for his customers and his neighbors. Later, Randy brought those same conservative Texas values to his public service. His real-world experience in the private sector, hiring good staff, making payroll, delivering good service, underpins his public service commitment to lower taxes, his contempt for wasteful spending, and his firm dedication to better schools. From 2008 to 2012, Randy served in the Texas State House. Not surprisingly, while serving in the Texas House, he was repeatedly recognized for his conservative track record. Randy also authored landmark legislation to combat human trafficking. Now in Congress, where he is a sophomore member, Randy holds a key leadership role in the Science, Space, and Technology Committee, serving as the chairman of the Energy Subcommittee. In that role, Randy has made it a top priority to fight for sane energy policies that encourage job creation and promote our business community. Randy is also a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, where he continues the fight against human trafficking, and has also co-sponsored legislation to strengthen our foreign policies and relationships with our allies across the globe. But perhaps most importantly, as a congressman, Randy is accessible and engaged in responding to the concerns of Galveston County. When your AC is on the fritz and you call Weber Air and Heat, the technician shows up and fixes the problem. In the same way, when local folks have an issue in Washington that is on the fritz, we pick up the phone and call Randy on his cell phone, and he responds personally to get it fixed. My wife suggested that I introduce Randy more simply this way. Randy Weber is a 5-star congressman. How does he earn his 5-star rating? Brenda. Randy has been married to Brenda Weber, a retired school teacher, for over 40 years. Randy and Brenda have 3 children and 7 wonderful grandchildren. To his credit, I have never heard Randy Weber speak, and I have heard him speak a lot, where he does not credit Brenda for being the best part of him. We appreciate Randy Weber being here today to talk to us about transportation issues. As a business owner whose trucks travel daily across our roads to reach his customers and our neighbors, Randy understands firsthand, as well as anyone, the importance of a strong local transportation system. With that, please welcome my congressman and my friend, Randy Weber.
Wow, man, he read that exactly the way I wrote it. Just did a good job. And David, you did a good job too. Where's David Hamilton? Right here, yeah. You said tweet Galveston. Trans number hashtag. I thought it was hashtag eat and tweet. I didn't know. So anyway, thank you all for that, for inviting me here today. And Ryan, you sat down somewhere over here. There you are. Thank you for the introduction. Actually, Brenda Gill and I will have been married 40 years this November the 6th coming up. So give her a hand. Boy, she proves that love really is patient and long-suffering. So, and yeah. All right, well, it's great to be here. This is the greatest, the 14th District of Texas is the greatest district in the greatest state in the greatest country in the world. And before I get long-winded, let me just tell you guys, you men and women, you ladies, something. Thank you. Y'all make it so. You make it the kind of place where it is truly a joy and a blessing to live and work and to build families and businesses and communities and lifestyles. You absolutely make it. And you elected officials, Joe Juicy, I can go through the whole list here. Our great chamber president, Miss Gina down here, Galveston Chamber President. all of y'all out there that are so involved in the community, thank you. It is absolutely a tremendous joy to serve you. And Ryan, we're sad that you were going to leave after 4 years. You've done a great job. I think, Dave, you said that he's not a surfer, but it's not because he didn't make waves. I do want to say that. So he got in there and mixed it up and did a good job. Well, thanks to Bix. Rathan, where did you wind up, Bix? I can't keep track of everybody. For inviting me back over here. Give Bix a hand. Thank you. We appreciate that. Lots of stuff going on. And you guys know that effective transportation, as Ryan talked about with my air conditioning company. And I appreciate the plug, by the way. Weber's Air and Heat. The number's 281. You guys know that Commerce has to have good transportation, good roads, good highways in order to continue to make this district the best there is. So let's talk about a major component to how the transportation process is funded here from the Washington, D.C. perspective. Federal surface transportation programs are funded primarily through taxes on motor fuels that are deposited into the Highway Trust Fund. Most of y'all know HTF. Any of y'all ever heard of diversions? When you talk about the state level, Fund 6, the diversions, Senator Larry Taylor is very familiar with those. We know what those are. We want those funds to be used for what they're supposed to be used for. Well, the money goes into HTF. The federal tax rate at 18.4 cents per gallon, per gallon, has not been increased at the federal level since anybody? 1993. State and local taxes add about 32 cents per gallon to the price of gas. Now, since the 2008 financial crisis, fuel use has declined, and the trust fund, the HTF, has been running deficits ever since. So you say, well, Randy, if that's true, if it's running a deficit, how's Congress making those appropriations? Well, I've got two things to say about that. Number one, since when did Congress have to have money to spend it? And number two, I'm glad you asked. What they're doing is they're taking money from the General Treasury Fund, and that's not appropriate, in my opinion. They have taken $53 billion since 2008 out of the fund. Now, let me hasten to add that that was before my time. I'm trying to get some sanity up there and get some semblance of planning going on so that we don't continue to deplete the General Treasury Fund. Not all of the dollars in the trust fund go to build highways, and that's part of the problem. Those are the diversions, I would argue. They don't all go to build highways and bridges. In fact, some of the money ends up being diverted to fund public transit. Some of the money ends up being used to fund bike paths. Some of the money winds up being used to fund scenic overlooks, which I thought was ironic. If you want a scenic overlook, go up in the gallery of the House in Congress and you can watch the zoo. Some of it is used to fund historic preservation, and some of it used to fund trails. You call them hike and bike trails. So not all of those dollars actually go into funding what we would call transportation. If Congress ever fails to provide sufficient funding for transportation programs, the trust fund would have insufficient funds, obviously, since it's running a deficit, to reimburse states for those ongoing highway projects. Folks, that's a reality that we cannot afford. Let me tell you my opinion how smart Congress is, in case you can't tell. Congress, I don't know when it was, back in the 80s, I guess, institutes, pre-1993, we know that, a sales or tax, gasoline tax, right? For maintenance and maintenance on existing highways and construction of new highways, right? Y'all with me? You know what that is, gasoline tax. And then they come right behind that, and they mandate that all vehicles have to use less fuel. Now, how smart is that? I mean, the left hand doesn't know what the other left hand's doing. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Larry Taylor will remember when we were in the State House. You know, everybody wants to go green. Y'all heard of that, the Go Green movement, right? Come on, I need some feedback here, right? All right, make sure that look, it wasn't Mexican food we ate. You don't have to have a siesta yet. So, in the Texas House, there was a bill that was filed that said if you have an electric car, you don't have to pay a toll fee. You get to ride Texas tollways free. And I said, are you crazy? Here comes Congress. What have they done? They've given subsidy, us, right? American taxpayers' dollars, subsidies to making batteries, solar power, wind power, green energy, right? We give them subsidies on the front end. We give a subsidy to car manufacturers. If you buy a electric car, what's the subsidy? Anybody? $7,000, $9,000, give or take, somewhere around that range. And now what we're going to, they don't pay any gasoline tax, right? And now we're going to give them more taxpayer dollars. We built a toll road that's funded by tolls. And we're going to give an electric car owner another taxpayer subsidy. Obviously, Senator Taylor, he was in the House, I was in the House. We fought that bill. We kept it from coming to the floor. It's unbelievable how some of the members in the legislature just want to give away their money. Here they come with more stiffer CAFE standards, okay, auto fuel efficiency standards. They want to make cars more and more efficient. You've heard the president say this. He wants to make them get how many miles to the gallon by 2020? Anybody? 80. I heard 80. I heard 50. What was it down here, Ruth? 54.5. It's not that Ruth knows, but it's not that marathon is paying attention. But I would ask Ruth to be a bit more specific if she could. But you can't make this stuff up, people. So, I'm not about giving away more of our hardworking Texans' tax money. I'm sorry, I'm just not. On December the 4th, 2015, President Obama signed the Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act. We call it FAST, F-A-S-T. The act authorized spending on federal highway and public transit programs for 5 years or through fiscal end September the 30th, 2020. As opposed to short-term extensions from Congress, that's a better deal. I get that, right? This legislation gives multi-year certainty for TxDOT and local governments as they plan projects in Galveston County and across our great state. That authorization totals roughly $305 billion with the B dollars for fiscal year 2016 through fiscal year 2020, for those of you who are keeping track. This includes $233 billion with the B dollars for highways and highway safety, $61 billion for public transportation, and $10 billion for Amtrak. That's what that authorization includes. I didn't vote for it, and full disclosure, I wouldn't vote for that legislation because it failed to provide what I consider to be honest solutions to our transportation problem. This legislation continued gas tax financing of mass transit, for example. You saw the Amtrak part in there, of mass transit and other programs that are, I would argue, unrelated to highway structure. Unrelated to highway structure. And the program didn't provide any long-term solutions, yet another Band-Aid going forward 5 years. Under this legislation, any shortfall in that trust fund would be made up by transfers of $70 billion with the B dollars per time from the Treasury, paid for through one-time, what I call budget gimmicks, like a sale from the SPR, sale of oil, crude oil from the SPR, Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Now, any of y'all following the price of oil? Up or down? Yeah, we really ought to be using oil that we paid $80 or $90 a barrel for and selling it at $47. Do you think we can make that up on volume, maybe, if we sell enough of it? So, that was a budget given. I said, I'm not going to sign off on that. We're going to deplete our Strategic Petroleum Reserve? I don't think so. Despite any of my concerns with the way Congress funded this bill, there are some good policy changes. I'll give it that. It converts the Surface Transportation Program to a block grant program, for example. The Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, STBGP, will provide states significant flexibility in how these funds may be obligated. Can you say local control? I like that part of it. What does that mean? The program provides flexible funding that may be used by states and localities for projects to preserve and improve the conditions and performance of any federal highway. any federal bridge, tunnel project on any public road, pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, and transit capital projects. So there's some flexibility there. If it's, so you ask, how is it allocated and when is it allocated? It's allocated annually. The funds are contract authority, obligations are reimbursed by the trust fund, and all the money flows through TxDOT first. I like the local control aspect. Then the regional councils, COGS, what we call them, HJC, for example, 13 counties, they get together, they work, and they plan on where the money should be spent. Most of you know, I won't read the list of the 13 counties. This act also prioritizes existing transportation funding for two new programs, the National Highway Freight Program and a nationally significant Freight and Highways Project Program, which is designed to meet what Ryan called those critical needs of commerce. You know, you've got commerce, you want to be moving things throughout our area. We've got the greatest ports in the country. We want to move that commerce. The official name for the National Significant Freight Program is Fostering Advancements in Shipping and Transportation for the Long-Term Achievement of National Efficiencies. If you want the acronym, FASTLANE, F-A-S-T-L-A-N-E, that's the name of the program. There's been several Texas-based applications already, and guess what? All of them were rejected by the United States Department of Transportation Secretary. Every single one of them. Washington, D.C., under this program, folks, got $90 million of the $760 million total pot, if you will, of the money pot, to reconstruct the Arlington Memorial Bridge. Texas got the big goose egg. This is one of the problems with Congress today, quite frankly. Your House of Reps, led by the Republicans in 2006, did away with earmarks. They basically gave the power of the purse to the administration. And I'll tell you, when the administration's making the call, it's Texas that pays that price because we don't get our fair share of funding. Well, I'm currently working with TxDOT to ensure that all of our port areas are connected to the primary highway freight network so that we can all get a fair shake when we apply for federal funds. With no solution for long-term funding projects, transportation programs, Congress is going to face projections of a large gap between trust fund tax receipts and spending plans when it begins debating the reauthorization of that FAST program in 2020. We have got to bite the bullet and plan now. We can't do this. We can't fly by the seat of our pants and operate our budget on an emergency basis every single session. We've got to quit doing that. Well, it's no surprise, should come as no surprise, that with the growth of our federal government, bureaucratic red tape is growing alongside with it. As I've explained above about our highway trust fund, how it's been mismanaged, and it's been bailed out multiple times. Now there are options, but not the solutions we need that are being talked about. Strategic Petroleum Reserve is one of them. Those are not the solutions we need for long-term success and multimodal transportation management. We could, I'm going to give you some options. Here's some that are being discussed. We could do these things. I'm not necessarily saying we should. Number one, we could just, business as usual, continue bailing out the trust fund with general fund transfers. I don't advocate that, obviously. That's the method they've been used. We could cut transportation funding. 30% cut, listen to this, 30% cut required to balance that program. Certainly not advocating that. Remove spending on public transportation, example, bike lanes, trails, etc., from the trust fund. Maybe we put those over in a different account that says those are niceties we'd like to have, okay? Maybe that's a solution. To 15 cents per gallon to balance the tax budgets while we're spending that money. Folks, this hurts the people with the least efficient vehicles. I mean, it just does. There's talk about imposing a vehicle per mile tax. How many of y'all have heard about that? We dealt with that in the Texas legislature, didn't we, Larry? They said, you know, well, we're going to bring this up. Maybe we need to impose a BMP. I said, BMT. I said, it's, you know, vehicle mile travel per tax. vehicle miles traveled. And I said, that's not what it's going to stand for. If the legislature imposes that, that's going to stand for some very mad Texans. Let me just tell you, I'm not in favor of that. I'm absolutely not in favor of that. I mean, it has privacy issues. You want somebody coming into your vehicle and monitoring your mileage and seeing where you've been and how many miles per gallon, you know, and are you getting all that kind of stuff. President Obama has also offered to impose a tax on oil. I think that's a terrible idea. Other proposal or to tax vehicles based on weight and expand tolling to pay for highway projects. The weight thing I get because it's a user fee. You get a vehicle going down the road, tearing up that road. I drive an 8,000-pound truck and a F-350, and I don't drive an electric car, by the way. And I don't drive. And I drive an Expedition, a Ford Expedition, about a 4,000-pound car. My license receipts are higher than Brenda's car. They just are. It's more weight involved. So Ron DeSantis of Florida, in my opinion, filed a bill that's one of the smart solutions. It's called H.R. 2716, the Transportation Empowerment Act. And I'm a co-sponsor of the bill. It's a good start to eliminating the bureaucratic middlemen in Washington and giving the states the power to determine the roadmap for their own transportation policy. It would reduce the federal tax accordingly from 18.3 cents a gallon to currently to 3.7 cents a gallon and give the money back to the states and let them decide. And you know, when you send your money up to the federal government for them to use and then redistribute to the states, you know, I think that law enforcement officials call that money laundering. They take their cut, you know. And so I'm not in favor of letting the federal government do their own money laundering. I'm just not. Interstate, that's one solution. You're going to see more proposed. We'll come back into session day after Labor Day, it'll be Tuesday, September the 6th, and we'll go to work on some of those proposals. Let me switch gears. How many of y'all have heard of Dr. Brian Babbitt's Interstate 14 in the new highway bill? You're getting it. What we call forts to ports. A lot of it over in East Texas, Beaumont. My bride of almost 40 years grew up over in Nederland. Of course, Dr. Babbitt is from Beaumont. And, you know, of the 5 ports that we have in our district, more than any other member of Congress, some have 4 ports, but District 14 has 5. A little known fact is the Port of Beaumont moves more military personnel and equipment than any other port in the United States. So it's very, very strategic. We want this Upper Texas Gulf Coast. How many of y'all would like to see the Upper Texas Gulf Coast become the gateway to America? Absolutely, you bet. It means jobs. So Dr. Babbitt has got that in the highway bill. It's going to provide an interstate that can come down through the ports there and get some of the traffic off of some of those already over-traveled roads. Let me switch now and go to waterways and ports. Nearly 1/3 of our economy, 1/3 of our economy depends on international trade. I'm a proponent of international trade. That's why I voted for the Trans-Pacific Trade Promotional Authority, and we'll look hard at the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Now, I don't know if y'all noticed or see anything, but I've been hearing bits and pieces about some national election going on. Y'all seen some of that? Both of the candidates at the top are not doing us a favor on Trans-Pacific Partnership. Folks, I've been in the classified briefing. That is a negotiated document, 734 pages long. I've been in the private room where you have to go into a secure facility, leave your cell phones outside, can't take pictures. And I've read the executive summary, all 100 pages. We want to be able to do business with those 11 nations over there. Y'all watching China making a move in the South China Sea, building a military base out there? 90% of the world's trade lies outside our borders. 40% of it are through those 11 countries over there. Nearly 1/3 of all the world's commerce, I heard some the size of 1/2, goes through that area over there. Do you want us to be able to sell products overseas? Absolutely. So we'll get the Trans-Pacific Partnership back, TPP. It's 150 different trade categories. Your representative will digest that thing. We'll wade through that thing. We'll look at agriculture products, cars, automobiles, all kinds of categories, and we'll decide, is it good for our district? And if it is, guess what? We'll give it the thumbs up. We get an up or down vote. If it's not, I'll vote against it. So it's important, as we continue, that we continue to build this area and get as much trade as we can. Since we deal with so much trade, and we want to come in through our area, transportation costs account for as much as 10% of the cost of food, clothing, and other goods. And I know that's true because I've calculated the mileage to Baybrook Mall, and Brenda is spending a lot of gasoline going back and forth. It's critically important that our ports and waterways run efficiently and are properly maintained. We've got great ports. Can I get an amen, John and Mike? You bet. In TX-14, the Galveston District Army Corps of Engineers is responsible, as you know, for allocating federal funds to dredge and maintain the harbors of 5 ports: Beaumont, Port Arthur, Texas City, Galveston, Freeport, in our district. Additionally, the Corps maintains the Houston Ship Channel, which, by the way, didn't that come up through our district? See, we ought to be able to participate in their tonnage, don't you think? We ought to have like a toll booth out there where we get some of that credit. Properly maintained harbors and waterways decrease the costs of merchandise and freight. Conversely, poorly maintained, guess what? Increases the cost. So we want to make sure that our harbors and our waterways are the best maintained. Unfortunately, the Army Corps of Engineers has apparently become a huge bureaucratic machine with a big backlog. And I mentioned earlier, the Republicans did away with earmarks. They gave the power of the purse over to the administration. We can no longer come in and say, hey, we've got a 16 million or 30 million dredging project. We want to reach over here in the appropriations bill and we want to get that money and put it together. They say that's an earmark. So the administration gets to set priorities and the bureaucracies get to set priorities. Folks, that's backwards. That's absolutely backwards. Your House of Reps should be the one setting the spending priorities. In 2014, Congress passed and the President signed into law the word of the bill, Water Resource Reform and Development Act, WRRDA. As enacted, this law requires the Army Corps bureaucracy to ensure our ports and our waterways are properly maintained. And economically important infrastructure projects that have already been undergone get a timely review in what they're doing, and if they need approval, they get a timely permitting process and a timely approval. It's long since past today when we can afford to wait 2, 3, or more years for EISs, environmental impact statements, or project permits. We just can't afford that. Well, that's right. So, I will work to ensure that our ports are treated equally, as expeditiously as possible, to make sure that we get our fair share of federal grants and that we can maintain freight, rail, and connector roads so that our commerce can move effectively into our communities. And did I mention that I want the Gulf Coast to be the gateway to America? That's part of it. We've got to be on top of that game. So when we get back in, Congress needs to pass a new WRDA bill, a new Water Resource Reform and Development Act. Before the end of this year, folks, it's not looking good. Congress is out in October for campaigning, I guess. The election's November the 8th. We get 3.5 weeks in September. We'll get 2 weeks in November before Thanksgiving. We'll get 2 weeks in Christmas. So we've got a lot of work to do. We expect to have that WRDA bill on the floor of the House sometime in September this year. We're all big boys and girls here. I would hope we would have gotten a budget passed and some appropriation bills that will probably wind up with a continuing resolution on the floor of the House before September the 30th, which is the end of fiscal year. So expect to see that. So, let me just say in closing, thank you again for all that y'all do. In this day and age, I say there really is only 2 sins left in America, if you think about it. One of them is smoking, and the other is being politically incorrect. Is that right? Is that about right? And so I'll just tell you this. I remember what Mark Twain once said. He said, you know, America will stand for just about anything as long as you don't block traffic. So y'all are helping with that. Again, thank you. It's a privilege to serve this district. Thank you very much.